Story Detectives, and welcome to video 2 of our book called Tiny Ant this week, and we're going to have a look at the word of the week and some of the vocab. So, can I have a drum roll please? Our word of the week is rehearse. Oh, okay. Let's have a look where we find this in the story. So, it's right near the beginning here. It says, the animals rehearse their acts while waiting in the queue. So what does the word rehearse mean? Let's see if we can look it up in our dictionary. Now, we know when we're looking up in a dictionary, we have to look things up in alphabetical order. So we need to go through the dictionary until we get to the letter R, and then E, H in order to find the word rehearse. So let's do the alphabet. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R. Aha, we're on the R's and the R-E's, and here we have the word rehearse. So it means it's a verb. That little letter there, V, means that the word rehearse is a verb. So that means it's a doing word. It's a word that describes something that you do. And it means to practice a play or music for later public performance. So it's about practicing something until you get it right, until you do something for a performance. So let's have a quick look here then. We have our word of the week, which we're going to put as rehearse, and our meaning, to prepare for a performance. So let's have a look if we can find some synonyms and antonyms. So one of them we've mentioned already is the word practice. So it said in the dictionary, one of the ways that it explains what the word rehearse means is to practice for a performance. So I'm sure many of you have been, well, we certainly have had our school performance, our Christmas show at Christmas last year, and we practiced, we rehearsed for the show. We made sure that we got everything ready and that we all knew what our lines were going to be and our dances and our songs, and we made sure that we had it all ready for when we did our performance. So rehearse is definitely a similar word to practice. Okay, now here is the phrase. It's not just a word here, it's actually a phrase. Go over. Now this is also one of the synonyms because it also means to practice, to rehearse. If you go over something, so if you have to learn some lines, if you've got a part in a play, you might go over them again and then again and again. And that going over helps you remember the lines. And that's another word to say that you're rehearsing or practicing. Now, what about this phrase here? Play it by ear. Now, this is the opposite. It's a phrase that means the opposite. So I'm going to put that with the antonyms. If you play it by ear, it's a phrase that it's like if you're going to play a musical instrument and you don't really have the music written down and you're just going to listen and see if you can figure it out yourself. But it's a term that means you haven't really prepared anything and you're just going to give it a go as you go along. So it's basically the opposite idea of rehearsing. Instead of rehearsing, you're just going to get up there, do your performance or make a speech or whatever it is that you're going to do, but you haven't really thought it through. You're just going to go along with it and see what happens at the time. So that's the opposite, and it's not a good idea in many cases to play something by ear. It can be useful occasionally to be able to just work something out as you go along, but most of the time I have to say to practice or go over or prepare is definitely a better way to be. So let's have a look at this word here. We've got the word train. Now, not train like choo-choo train here. I'm going to put it with the synonyms because this is another word with the same sort of meaning as rehearse. Usually you would use the word train if you were going to talk about a sporting event. So you might say, I'm going to play football, I've got a big competition coming up, so I need to train, I need to get better and better at football. And it's not quite the same as rehearse, because rehearse is usually referring to some sort of show or perhaps public speaking, but it has the same sort of meaning. It means you're preparing, you're getting yourself ready in advance for something that's going to be important. Now, let's have a look at another antonym. We've got the phrase here, wing it. Now, wing it can also be a similar sort of meaning to play it by ear. It means you haven't rehearsed, you haven't practiced, You're just going to make it up as you go along when you need to. Again, it's not usually a very good idea. It's a good skill to be able to have if you haven't had a chance to prepare. You might be able to just come up with something on the time. So say if you've been asked to give a speech about something, if you can just wing it, then you're lucky, but it's not a good way to be because it means you haven't really prepared anything and you haven't practiced and you haven't got it ready in advance. And another word that means a similar sort of idea is the word improvise. Now, this can mean many things actually if you're talking about improvise, but in this case, I'm looking at it as meaning you haven't really prepared anything, you haven't got a speech ready, somebody's asked you to talk about something and you're just going to make it up as you go along. It's improvise. It's kind of making do at the time with what you have. Again, the opposite idea of rehearsing, preparing or practicing. So there we have our very interesting word of the week there, rehearse. And our meaning, prepare for a performance. It doesn't necessarily have to be a performance. It could be some sort of speech or some sort of other event that's not necessarily a performance. Maybe you just have to, you might need to rehearse your ideas for a discussion perhaps. But usually it's in front of other people. So you'd be rehearsing so that you get it right in front of other people. And our synonyms, which are practice, go over and train. They all mean the same sort of thing, always to do with getting prepared. And our antonyms are when you haven't practiced and you should have done, so you end up having to play it by ear, wing it, or improvise. So I'll just slide that out of the way, and we're just going to have a look at some of the other vocabulary in this book, just to make sure that you understand, because I've got a vocab booster in this week's worksheets. So the word I'm going to have a look at as well was, let's see, the word queue. Now this is a word that we particularly use in the UK and Britain, and I believe it's not used as much in the States or in Canada. It's when you're all waiting in a line for something. So you can use it as a verb, you can say I'm queuing, or you can use it to refer to this noun of a line of people. So usually in the States you'll hear things like don't wait in line, don't cut in the line. And in the UK you'll hear the word queue. I don't really know why it's so different, but there we go. It's a word that means waiting in a line. And then let's have a look, what was the other ones? Oh, joke and jeer. That's when you're teasing somebody. Joking is like, in this case, they're laughing at the little ant because they don't think he's going to have any talent. And jeer is making sort of rude remarks to him. And then let's have a look, what was the other one? Acrobatics, that's right. Now the lion is doing an acrobatics act here. Acrobatics is like a sort of gymnastics type. You often refer to acrobatics of a circus, you might say an acrobat. So it's like doing a gymnastics kind of stretchy, bendy, flexible, spin upside down kind of act, but not in exactly a sporty way, because gymnastics is an official sport. Acrobatics is more for entertainment, but it's the same kind of a thing. So you're not actually usually competing in sort of a sport like it. You wouldn't have the Olympics in acrobatics, but it's the same type of skills that you would need to perform in gymnastics as acrobatics. Acrobatics is more done to entertain the crowd. And then there was another one, I think. Has the other one gone? Microphone, that's right. Now, I'm sure most of you have seen a microphone. We've actually got one that we use sometimes in Story Detectives, but I just wanted to check that you knew what it meant. It's this electronic device, usually, and it helps you to hear at the back of the room. So if you're going to do some sort of performance, you might need a microphone so that everybody can hear. It makes you sound louder, amplifies your voice. And I think there's one more. Judge. Now, this can also be a noun or a verb like the word queue. So you can say, that guy there is a judge. You might say Simon Cowell is a famous judge on Britain's Got Talent. But the verb judge is what I'm looking at here. It shows you can't judge anyone by how they appear. And the word judge in this case means to make an opinion, to form an opinion. So you can't have an opinion, or you can't make a sort of guess about somebody or make any assumptions about somebody by what they appear like. So you can't judge them. You sum them up, look at them, make a decision based on what they look like. So that's the word judge used as a verb. And I think that's all. So when we look at the worksheets, I will show you on the next video how that all fits into our activities for this week. Okay, thank you.